Daniel Cross had built his life on precision. Every morning, his alarm rang at exactly 5:30 a.m. He'd rise without hesitation, scan global financial reports while sipping black coffee, and be in his sleek glass office before most of the city even stirred. As the youngest managing director at a powerful investment firm, Daniel was known for one thing: never making emotional decisions. Feelings were unpredictable, numbers weren't. One cold December night, long after his coworkers had gone home, Daniel stepped out into the nearly empty streets. Snow drifted down in quiet spirals, softening the sharp edges of the city. He barely noticed. His mind was still on a high-stakes deal that could double his firm's assets. That's when he saw the man. He stood outside a small corner store, arguing with the cashier. His clothes were worn, his voice oddly calm despite the tension. When Daniel walked closer, the man turned and locked eyes with him. "You ever wonder," the stranger said suddenly, "what your life would look like if you chose something different?" Daniel frowned. "I don't have time for this." The man smiled, like he knew something Daniel didn't. That's exactly the problem. Before Daniel could respond, the moment broke. The stranger turned back to the cashier, and Daniel walked on, shaking his head. By the time he reached his penthouse apartment, he'd already forgotten the encounter. Or so he thought. Daniel awoke to noise, not the quiet hum of city traffic 40 stories below, but laughter, loud, chaotic laughter. Something crashed in the distance, followed by a child's voice yelling, "It wasn't me!" Daniel sat upright. This wasn't his bedroom. The walls were painted a warm yellow, cluttered with family photos. A small dog jumped onto the bed, licking his face enthusiastically. "Okay, what is happening?" Daniel muttered, pushing the dog away. The bedroom door burst open, and a woman stepped in, holding a laundry basket. "You're finally awake. Can you help me? We're already running late." Daniel froze. He recognized her instantly. Lena Hart. Or at least she used to be Lena Hart, the woman he had loved in college, the one he had left behind when he chose his career over everything else. Only now she looked at him like they'd never been apart. "Daniel?" she said, tilting her head. "You okay?" I think there's been a mistake," he said slowly, climbing out of bed. Lena laughed. "Very funny. Come on, the kids need breakfast." "The kids?" Right on cue, two children raced into the room, a boy and a girl, both under 10. They stopped when they saw him, grinning. "Dad's acting weird again," the boy said. Daniel's stomach dropped. The day unfolded like a dream he couldn't wake up from. The penthouse was gone, replaced by a modest suburban house. His tailored suits were replaced by wrinkled shirts and a name tag from a local tire shop. A tire shop? Daniel stood behind the counter that afternoon, staring at his reflection in a smudged mirror. This version of him looked different, softer, maybe, tired in a way that spreadsheets never caused. "Earth to Daniel," a voice said behind him. He turned to see his coworker, Marcus, holding a clipboard. "You're up for the Henderson job." "I don't fix tires," Daniel said automatically. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You've been fixing them for 10 years." 10 years. Daniel swallowed hard. At first, he resisted everything. He insisted it was a mistake, some elaborate illusion. He tried to leave, to find his office, his real life, but every road led him back to the same place. Back to Lena, back to the kids, back to a life he didn't recognize. But slowly, something shifted. It started small. One evening, his daughter asked for help with her homework. Daniel almost refused. He didn't have time for this, he thought automatically, before realizing he did. So he sat down. It was frustrating at first. The math was simple, but explaining it wasn't. His daughter grew impatient. He nearly gave up. Then she smiled when she finally understood, and something in his chest warmed. Days turned into weeks. Daniel began to notice things he had never paid attention to before. The way Lena hummed while cooking, the way his son tried and failed to tell jokes at dinner, the quiet satisfaction of fixing something with his hands instead of negotiating it on a screen. This life wasn't perfect. Money was tight, the house was small, problems didn't disappear with a phone call, but it was full. One night, after the kids had gone to bed, Daniel sat on the couch with Lena. "You ever wonder," he began, hesitating, "what life would have been like if we made different choices?" Lena looked at him carefully. "You mean if you'd taken that job in the city?" He nodded. She smiled softly. "Maybe we'd have more money, a bigger house." Daniel waited. "But we wouldn't have this," she said, gesturing around them. Daniel followed her gaze. The scattered toys, the worn furniture, the quiet warmth of the room. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about what he was missing. He was thinking about what he had. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. Daniel awoke to silence. Cold, empty silence. He was back in his penthouse. The city stretched out below him unchanged. For a moment, he lay still, hoping, almost expecting, to hear the chaos of the other life. But there was nothing. No laughter, no barking dog, no Lena. Just the hum of a perfectly controlled world. At work, everything was exactly as he'd left it. The deal was still on track. His colleagues still admired his precision, his focus. But something felt off. The numbers didn't excite him anymore. That night, Daniel found himself walking the streets again, snow falling just like before. And there, outside the same corner store, stood the man. "You," Daniel said, approaching him. "What did you do to me?" The man smiled. "I didn't do anything. I just showed you something. That wasn't real." "Are you sure?" the man asked. Daniel hesitated. "It felt real," he admitted. The man nodded. "That's because it could have been." Daniel's chest tightened. "Is it too late?" he asked quietly. The man studied him for a moment, then stepped aside, revealing the store's glass window. Inside, he saw a reflection, not of himself, but of Lena, standing alone in a small apartment, older but unmistakable. "She's still out there," the man said, "living her life, just not with you." Daniel stared at the reflection, something inside him shifting. "Go," the man said. The next morning, Daniel did something completely out of character. He skipped work. Instead, he tracked down Lena. It wasn't easy. Years had passed, lives had changed, but eventually he found her, working at a small art gallery, just as vibrant as he remembered. When she saw him, she froze. "Daniel?" "Hi, Lena," he smiled, nervous for the first time in years. They talked. At first it was awkward. Years of distance don't disappear instantly, but slowly they found a rhythm again, shared memories, quiet laughter, the faint echo of what once was. Daniel didn't try to recreate the life he had seen. He didn't rush. For once, he allowed something to grow naturally. Months later, Daniel still worked in finance, but he worked less. He made time for dinners, for conversations, for things that couldn't be measured in profit. One evening, as he walked home with Lena, she slipped her hand into his. Daniel glanced at her, then up at the city lights. His life wasn't perfect. It wasn't predictable. But for the first time, it felt like it mattered. And that was something no deal could ever match.